Belle Starr saved an Apache warrior. 70 warriors surrounded her cabin the next morning. The snow had a way of holding sound, like a mother holding a fevered child. Close, breathless, unwilling to let the world in. It fell soft that evening, resting on the black shoulders of the pines and on the warped shingles of her cabin roof, seaming the gaps with white. Smoke lifted slow from the chimney, carrying the faint scent of spruce and ash, the kind of smell that told a man he was too far from town to turn back and too near to pretend he was alone. Out beyond the treeline, the last light of day bent low and gold across the frozen creek, where thin ice moaned against the current beneath. The land felt as if it had stopped to listen to itself. She had been at the chopping block when she heard it. A sound not quite the crack of wood, not quite the weight of snow sliding from a branch, but something heavier, dragging. She turned her head toward the trees. At first there was nothing, just the skeletal reach of aspens against the dimming sky. Then a figure broke loose from the gray, stumbling forward, dark hair matted to his cheek, shoulders sagging as if each step asked too much. He was young in the way stone can be young, etched by weather, unbent by time. His clothes were torn, one side of his shirt dark with blood. Even at a distance she saw the blue pinch of cold in his lips. She did not move to meet him. Not yet. She had learned long ago that a soul in trouble comes at its own pace or not at all. When he reached the fence post, his knees buckled, and he caught himself with a hand braced against the rail. That was when she crossed the yard, snow crunching under her boots, her breath a pale ghost in the winter air. Up close, she could see the frost crusted on his lashes, the long cut raked down his ribs. He was Apache, anyone could see that, but the look in his eyes was not of a man riding in victory. It was of someone who had been hunted. There was a time she might have turned away. Times when helping such a man meant the law at your door or worse. But the memory rose. Another winter, another night, when no one had opened a door for her. She took his arm. His weight came to her slowly, as if he didn't quite trust her body to bear it. They crossed the yard like strangers learning a dance, one dragging, one leading, until the cabin's lamplight caught in the blood at his side. She set him on the bed without a word. His breath came in shallow pulls. His eyes followed her as she moved to the stove, ladling water into the pot, adding herbs crushed between her palms. She worked by habit, not haste, stripping the torn shirt, binding the wound. His skin was warm with fever, his shoulders rigid against her touch. When she handed him the steaming cup, he didn't drink. Not until she took a sip first. Then, slow as if testing the air in another man's house, he swallowed. The night fell deeper, laying its weight against the cabin walls. She pulled the quilt over him and took the chair by the fire. The flames leaned and whispered in the draft. At some hour past midnight, she woke to find him awake, his gaze fixed on the carved wooden bird that sat on the windowsill. The small thing was rough-hewn from pine, its wings open as if mid-flight, a ribbon of faded blue tied at its neck. She said nothing. He did not touch it. By morning, the light came thin through the frostbitten glass. He tried to stand. She crossed the room, pressing a crust of bread into his hand. He glanced toward the door, toward the snow-hushed woods, but stayed. They shared the bread without speaking. She noticed, in the way his eyes followed her steps, that he had marked the limp she thought hidden. That day passed in small labors. She hauled water. He, unasked, stacked the woodpile high. She mended a child's blanket by lamplight, the worn edge soft from years of holding. He watched the needle slip in and out, his face unreadable. She did not offer an explanation. The second morning, the world pushed in. At the well, she met the neighbor's wife. The woman's eyes fell on the 2 tin cups in her hands, and her mouth curved, not in kindness. By midday, a ranch hand rode by, reining in at her fence to warn of Apache in the hills. His voice held the edge of a man measuring guilt against suspicion. She thanked him, though his warning was not for her sake. That evening she told her guest he should leave before dark. He sat still, jaw set, as if her words were the rattle of a snake he'd already chosen to step over. Outside, somewhere beyond the ridge, the faint thud of horses carried on the air. They froze, listening. Neither spoke of it. Supper was quiet, 2 spoons dipping into the same pot, steam rising between them. Snow came heavy in the night. She woke cold to find the bed empty, the door ajar. The bite of wind cut into the room. For a moment she felt that old ache, the kind left by absence more than loss. She banked the fire and sat in the stillness, telling herself it was better this way. Just before dawn, the door eased open. He stepped inside, hair silvered with frost, carrying her missing hatchet and a bundle of kindling. He set them by the stove without looking at her. In the dim gray, she caught the faintest curl at the corner of his mouth. It was gone by the time he turned away. The next morning broke with the sound of many hoofbeats. She went to the window. Out in the snow stood 70 riders, their ponies steaming in the cold, their bodies wrapped in the colors of the earth and sky. The cabin sat in the center of their ring. The only break in their silence, the soft snort of breath and the creak of leather. The man rose from the bed, moving without hurry. He opened the door, stepping into the brittle morning air with no weapon in his hand. She stood inside, heart thudding slow and heavy. The warrior's eyes followed him as he crossed the yard. One dismounted, a man older, his hair bound with a strip of red cloth. They spoke in low voices, words she could not follow, but the air itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the younger man gestured toward the cabin, toward her. Every head turned. The leader's gaze was steady, not unkind, but sharp enough to see the marrow of a soul. She stepped outside, the snow biting through her stockings, the air tasting of smoke and iron. She met his eyes. He looked at her as if weighing something she would never be able to name. The wounded man spoke again, softer this time. A long pause. Then the leader nodded once, curt and final. The ring of warriors loosened, turning their horses toward the trees. Hoofbeats thudded into the distance until only the leader remained. For a breath, he sat his horse, studying her face. Then he touched 2 fingers to his temple in a gesture she did not know and rode away. The man returned to the porch, watching until the last rider vanished into the white. He reached into the cabin and took the wooden bird from the sill, placing it in her hands. His fingers brushed hers, warm now, not fevered. She felt the ribbon against her palm, worn and frayed. That night they ate in silence again. But it was not the same silence. It was heavier, steadier, like the weight of a door closed against the wind. She found herself looking at him when he was not looking at her. The snow outside caught the moonlight, turning the world to silver. The fire cracked, sending a shower of sparks up the chimney. She thought of the ring of riders, of the quiet nod that had spared her, of the bird in her hands. Somewhere inside her, something shifted. Not in a rush, but like ice breaking under the slow insistence of spring. She wondered if he would stay until morning. And if he did, whether she would let him leave again.